Well, I had not expected to be doing this today, that's for sure. So I hope you're all going to be kind to me, and I hope you're all going to play along. And if I can get through this in 18 minutes, it will be the biggest achievement I've ever done in my life. You'll be able to see quickly, I like the sound of my own voice, although I've never taped it, to be fair. Not that I would admit to it anyway. So I'm going to have to ask you to help me along with this, because I've absolutely no idea how this is going to go. So if it goes great, it was planned to go great. If it goes terrible, it's not my fault. So we're going to look at why do we perceive the world so differently? And what I want to do, I want to ask you a question, and this is the bit where I'm really going to need your help, because I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to ask you to tell me that if you had to catch a train, and let's forget about the beast from the east right now, but if you had to catch a train that left at the train station at 3 p.m, I want to know what time would you arrive at the train station. But how I want you to show me is by imagining we have a timeline here at the front of the stage, okay? And I want you to imagine that this side of the stage is 2 o'clock, just on the floor down here. And the far side over here is 3 o'clock. And what I want to know is, what time would you get to the train station? Now, because we're going to be doing this in the fastest time ever, I would ask you all, please come along as fast as you can and show me what time would you get to the train station. Okay, so we've got 2 o'clock at this side, 2 o'clock. And we've got, now this is really interesting because I said here at 3 o'clock, but there is always some people who add extra time on. So let me just check. Let me see what we've got here. So, madam, what's your name? Joe. Joe, what time did you get to the train station? 2. Oh, now I wish you could all see Joe's face, because I'm going to try my hardest to show you. I said, Joe, what time did you get to the train station? 2. Dead on. That would tell me, we can read from Joe's facial expressions. That's important to you, Joe, right? Yeah. So, what's your name? Sim. What time you're at the train station? Oh, now you see that was another really strong 2. Yep, 2 as well. Are you 2-ish?
I would plan for 2.
Plan for 2. Oh, I like. There's always one of those in every audience, I have to say. So here, what have we got? What time we got here? 2:15. 2:15?
2:45.
Oh, but you can't get over there. I'll let you off. I'll let you off. Maybe the beast from the east has got in the way. So here, what are we here? 2:30. 2:45? 5:02, okay. 10:02, what have we got here?
5:02.
5:02. 5:02.
5
past. And what's your name, sir? Paul. Paul, can you come here just a minute? So, this is Paul. He got to the train station at 3:05. What I want to ask you over this side of the room, so stay there, Paul. I will come and hug you later because this is going to be brutal. So, over here, Joe, where have you gone? Joe, Sim. Now, amongst friends, so you can be honest, tell me truthfully, what do you think of people like Paul?
Makes no difference to me.
Okay, makes no difference. What if you had to travel with Paul?
Not travel with Paul.
Yeah.
I would probably be a little bit annoyed about the fact that he's late, but it wouldn't really bother at all.
Oh, you'd be annoyed, Paul. You'd be annoyed, are you? Joe, what about you?
Just to their own. I'd probably miss that train.
Oh, she's not happy, Paul. She's like, I'll probably miss the train. How does it, so if you're travelling with somebody like Paul, imagine husband, wife, colleague, you can't see. Sim's pointing to the chap next to him. When you're like that and you're travelling with somebody like that, how does it make you feel? So we've got annoyed from Sim. What else?
Resigned.
Oh, resigned. What else? Joe, what about yourself?
Just kind of got to go with it.
You've got to go with it. Anybody else on this side of the room would feel something different?
I'd leave them behind.
You'd leave them behind.
On that train.
Yeah, what else? How does it make you feel? So you want to get there early. What was that? Stressed? What else? Anxious, yeah. So you're going to get some kind of an emotional response? Yeah? Oh, they're nodding. Now, Paul, what I want to know from you, and this is going to be really interesting. Come here, Paul. You see Joe and Sim over there?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think of people like that?
Nothing but admiration.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now what was really interesting, we got a laugh for most of the room except here we got, oh no. So for here, our 5 to 3 people, what do we think of people like that?
Wasting time.
Waste of time. So now this is really interesting. So waste of time. So you're more productive? Yeah, more efficient. Oh, we've got lots of nods going on. You people over here, what do you think about that? That you waste your time, you're not productive, you're not efficient with your time. What do you think about that? Oh, you're unreliable, Paul. Yeah. What else do we think of people like that? So they're unreliable. What else? Oh, you can't plan ahead. Yeah.
We plan to be there at 5 to.
Yeah, we plan to be there, but it's so you see what we just said. They plan to be there at 5 to. It's you lot. You've got too much time on your hands. Is that right? Wasting time. What do you think of that?
I'll bring my work to the station.
Oh, you see, they're more planned. They bring their work to the station. You see, it's you that aren't planned. What do you think about that?
That's around the environment. Yeah.
Oh, you see what you're missing down there? You see, they're all like, no way. So thank you. Sit back down. I'm going to explain to you why we've just done that. So I'm going to keep talking because we're short of time as you're grabbing a seat. So I hope that's okay. So in order to kind of look at what's just happened there, and I'm going to pull it apart in a little bit more detail in a minute, what we're going to do is we're going to look at why we perceive the world so differently. And this is, in it, the quickest way ever, an introduction to something called NLP. And NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And the official definition of NLP is it's the study of the subjective experience. So why did Joe get there at 2 o'clock and why is Paul happily rocking up at 3:05? Why do we have a completely different view of what's appropriate with our time? Why some people think they're planned and organised, and over here we've got people who think that actually they're planned and organised, and it's people over there who aren't. Too much time on their hands. Why do we see things so differently? Well, that's because the point of NLP is it studies how individuals think, feel and behave. And yes, there are some general patterns, but every single one of us have a subjective experience of everything that we go through in terms of our own versions of reality. So just to give you a little bit more detail, the neuro part of neuro-linguistic programming is about your thinking processes. So this is all about how your senses, how you use your senses to experience the world around you, how your conscious and your unconscious thought processes activate your nervous system, which influences your physiology, which influences how you feel, which influences what you do, which influences what you say. The linguistic part, you won't be surprised, that's all about your words. So this is about how you use language and how it influences you and those around you, and how you make sense of experiences through language, and how you talk to yourself and others. Now the programming bit, this is really interesting. This now is about your behaviour, how all these things come together to organise your thoughts, your ideas, your reactions into steps, into processes, into strategies, which lead to the results you get, and the impact that this has on yourself and others. So when we put all that together, what I just want to do is just draw your attention to the screen for a minute, because I just want to show you something. Oh, yes, there was a couple. Now, you don't have the benefit of what I can see over here. But some people are like, yeah, right, and then did you hear a little murmur? Oh, the little squeaks that kind of go, hands up, who hates that picture? Anybody really? Oh, there's quite a few hands, quite a lot of people. And I can see you, sir, you can't even look at it, can you? You know, no, with this gentleman here, he's like, I know, I can see, he's like this, I know it's there, and I'm not looking at it. You do know it's not real. Right, can you just pass that box that I've got down there with my little pet? No, I'm only joking, I don't have one on me. So the way our brains work is we know it's not real, but we've programmed ourselves habitually to think, to have a reaction. That's the programming bit, the behaviour bit, to have a reaction to something. And that reaction, for a lot of us, we feel it. We don't just think it. It might turn our stomach, it might make us look away, it might make us leave the room. Anybody hate interviews or anybody would hate to get up at a conference and just do a talk with absolutely no practice or anything whatsoever in front of an audience they don't know. So when we do things like that, what happens to our body? Shout out. Tense. Yeah, tense, our body, so our muscles. And stress, what happens when we feel stressed? Heart rate, exactly. I can tell you that I am shaking so much right now that for some reason my right butt cheek is going like that. I have no idea why. So it doesn't matter what you think, what it's saying is that will affect how we feel and it'll affect what we do. So I'm going to give you a very, very brief, the quickest ever introduction to how our brains work to help you understand a little bit more about why we feel and react the way we do in certain situations and why we each have our very own unique version of reality. So in any situation, how we perceive the situation as we are experiencing it is very unique and individual to us. And what actually happens is we take in about 2 million sensory pieces of information at any 1 second. But our brains can't cope with that abundance of data. So it has to filter some of it out before it can begin to try and make sense of it. And the way your brain filters information is it does it in 3 ways. It deletes some information, it distorts some, and it generalizes them. And it has to do that. Our brains have to be able to do that to enable us to learn quickly. But there's some downsides to that. So I'm going to explain the downside. You see now, you can see I have no idea what's coming next on the slide with an impromptu presentation, but let's keep going. So this idea about our perception, it's our own personal view of reality. And what actually happens in that moment in time is the facts, that is the sensory specific information, is merged with what we call our internal filters. And those internal filters are made up of our culture, our memories, our upbringing, our beliefs, our values, our identity, our state. And by state, I mean an emotional state or physical state at any one moment in time. And that bit in the middle forms your unique perception of reality. It's a unique combination that explains why we all see the world so differently and why we act in it so differently. So these internal filters determine what you focus on, what you look for, and what you leave out of your perceived experiences of reality. To give you an example, what's really interesting is we all pay attention to different things. So shout out, what's the first thing that you notice about this picture? Eiffel Tower? It's not real? Anything else? There's no right or wrong answer. We are all drawn to looking at different things. Flowers, what else? Double-decker bus. So notice we're getting very different quality of answers. But did anybody notice that it said Paris in the spring? No. So what actually happens is your brain will delete the information because it's superfluous. It doesn't need it. It was there. So many things are in front of us the whole time. But depending on our own internal filters, which we've just discovered are completely different and unique to every single one of us, because of that, we will delete information. And what's really interesting is our brains are designed to prove us right. Imagine that. Think back to every argument you ever had. So our brains are designed to prove us right. But if our brains work in such a way that it's deleting information that's right in front of our face, then how's that going to get in the way of how we actually make of the situation in front of us, how we interpret the experiences, how we decide whether somebody likes us, whether they're picking on us, whether they're just, discriminating against us, whatever that may be. If you think somebody doesn't like you, for example, in your workplace, your brain is designed to only look for the clues, all of the signals that confirm that belief, and it will actually leave out anything that goes against that. Let's just think about that for a moment. Think about the impact that that has on our communications, on our relationships, but also on how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others. So our perception of the situation drives how we feel and what we do. So if you wake up one day and you're in a glass half full mood, well, doesn't your day go great? You could wake up the exact same day and that morning have a glass half empty day. And doesn't everything go wrong on that day? And the reality is, it's how you perceive it. It's how you perceive it as being good or bad that determines whether it is or it isn't. And that's your own unique version, your subjectiveness, your version of reality. So what I'm going to try and attempt to do in the 4 minutes and 11 seconds that I've got left is to give you some actually tangible tools that you can take away and use to kind of use this stuff to influence how you think, feel and behave, and very much to influence those around you as well. So there is something called language and behaviour preferences. And with these preferences, what we can actually do, there's at least 12 of them. There are some say there's up to 60. What I'm going to do is introduce you probably to only one of them because that's all I've got time for. But this is a really interesting way of identifying what we're filtering. So what are we leaving out? And we can see and hear this in terms of our language and our behaviour. And what is important about these things is they reveal our values. So that's what's really important to us at in any one time and in any given context. So the train exercise was an example of how our behaviour shows us what's important to us. And the really interesting thing about this stuff is there is no right or wrong. So for Joe and Paul, they were both right. It's about whether or not these things are useful to you in any given context. And if they're not useful to you, so do you notice Paul said he had absolute admiration for anybody up there? But I bet, Paul, where you gone? Yeah. Does it change your behaviour, Paul? No, I didn't think so. So it's about what's important to us at any moment in time. So what I want you to do very, very quickly, it's going to have to be super quick. I want you just to turn to the person next to you and answer this, just the top question. I want you to imagine you're going to buy a used car. What would be important to you and why is that important? You've literally got 30 seconds to share that. If buying a used car, what's important to you and why is it important? Okay, if you don't mind just finishing your conversations there, because that clock is now ticking in my head like the Carol Vorderman countdown, and I can hear ringing over and over in my head. So, somebody shout out, what was your answer? Make sure it works. Why is that? Who said that? Somewhere over here. Sorry, I'm blinded by the light. Why is that important to you? Because it'll be a waste of money. Why is that important?
It would be hard to earn cash.
It would, pardon?
It would be hard to earn cash. What you've had to buy your car and it doesn't work, you'd be devastated.
Okay, so if it doesn't work, you'd be devastated. Somebody else tell me an answer. Trust? Did we say that? Yeah, trust?
Trusting the salesman, because I don't have any knowledge on the car and he's the professional.
Okay, trusting the salesman. Why is that important?
Because you've got to trust his word that the car will work, that it's licensed.
Okay, and why is that important?
For it to be long lasting.
For it to be long-lasting, why is that important?
So I can have it for a really long time.
So you can have it for a really long time. Now, you're probably thinking, why on earth does she keep asking these questions? And I've got to tell you, no offence, I was not interested at all in what you thought about used cars. What I'm interested in is what motivates you. And the various examples that we've just heard from each other, some people are motivated towards the things they want. Some people are motivated to avoid the things they don't want. So you don't want to waste your cash, you want to have a car for a very, very long time. What's really interesting is we can hear that these things come out in our language and our behaviour. So people with what we call a move away from pattern, they focus on problems. They want to fix things. They'll talk about what problems they want to avoid. Those people that are motivated by what they want to achieve, they focus on their goals. And if you're focused on your goals, you usually know what you want. Now, if you're having a conversation and you're at two sides of that spectrum, it will almost be like you're speaking in a different... Have you ever not felt eye to eye with anyone? Different wavelength? That's what happens when we actually have different ways of processing information. So, I'm over time. I'm going to just leave you with one thing. What can you do with this stuff? Listen out for your own preferences in your language. Listen, do you have a move towards preference? Do you know much better what you don't want than what you do want? Or do you have a preference, you know really clearly what you want? Think about that and listen in other people's language, because if you hear either of these patterns and it's the opposite of your own, if you want to communicate really well with that person and try and understand, get on the same page with them, try speaking their language instead of yours and see what happens. Thank you.